and welcome to Forward to the Past. In this episode I'm going to be talking about something quite unique and infamous, the musical Jolly Chimp. Now if you're of a certain generation you might remember these from your childhood, but if you're someone like me and probably most people that are aware of these, you know it because of the film Toy Story 3. So this is a vintage toy. This one probably is from around the 1950s, 60s, but they made it for quite a number of years without really changing it, so it's hard to tell. Before I open them up, we'll have a look at the box art itself. Sadly, the box has suffered some damage. I've used some tape on the inside just to hold it together. Now down the side here, presumably a child would go into the toy shop and see this and see what you do and what it does, and that's great advertisement. So switch him on, he starts making noise, you tap him on the head and he gets really angry and starts glaring his teeth, and then continues to make a load of noise. On the top and the bottom is the same, it's more or less the same again, the same image of the chimp. And then on the side, and these are symmetrical, it's the same on the other side, it's just got where you stick the batteries, which is basically in his backside, and it says you start making the noise here, and then if you hit him on the head it makes him pretty angry and he basically shouts at you. So I guess the idea was if he's being too noisy, they encouraged animal cruelty back then, so you hit him on the head and it makes him angry, but then he just continues making loads of noise. So let's get him out. Now the actual chimp himself, compared to the box art, is quite different in some respects. He has a much more creepy, scary face. I really don't know what was going through the designer's head when they came up with this design, because it's the stuff of nightmares. You know, this is not a kind of toy that's particularly cute. This thing is frightening to look at. So he's not soft either. I mean, he's got fur, which is soft, but he's not squidgy. Under here is metal housing for the internal workings, which we'll have a look at later on. So he's quite a rigid toy. The arms and legs, there's no texture in here. It's just wire. You can see just in there. It's just a copper bit of wire that goes along, and it's the same with both legs. Oh, there you go. And in the arms. So he's got a kind of strange feel there, and the switch is just here. One thing I noticed about it though, in the box, is the remains of the old battery casing. So it cost 60 cents. So this is obviously from America. The batteries go in the underside here. They are these great big D-cell ones. There we go. And it's got a diagram here of how they go in. So in the traditional way, one facing up, one facing down. There we go. And close the flap back up. Right, I'm going to give them a go. There we go. I'll see if I can do it again from the side. You see his eyes actually come out the head. There we go. You see, this model, I think he needs to be taken apart and the components in there probably lubricated and maybe some springs tightening, because his mouth doesn't close like it should. Also, when I hit the head, you can really hear that motor straining in there. And as soon as he's done with the whole grinding of the teeth and popping of the eyes, he should then continue to do his thing. But he doesn't, he just kind of switches off and you have to shake him, so he definitely needs some adjustment. But it just so happens I actually own two of these, and one of them I have already started the repair on, so you can see what these actually look like on the inside. Prepare yourself for the fright of your life. And I thought they were creepy on the outside. Right, I'm going to try and decipher exactly what all the components are, more or less. There's quite a lot going on in there, so I'll do my best. We'll start off with the drive motor itself here. So on the end of that there's going to be a cog, a sprocket that's spinning, but it needs to change direction. So inside here we've got this one with the teeth facing across. So this is a differential. So it's taking the drive from the motor and it's changing it 90 degrees. And then next to it we've got an even smaller cog, and that cog is driving another cog connected to this crank. Now this crank is very essential to what the chimp does. So if I switch it on now, you can see that in action. So as that spins round, it's got this push rod here, which goes all the way up to the bottom to his chin. Now what this does is, as it's spinning, it causes his head to bob up and down. Now as it does that, it drives what you might describe here as a shoulder blade. And in this groove you've got the arms. So as the head goes up and down, it actually causes the chimp to do his cymbal motion. So I'll just turn him on. Now one thing you may have noticed earlier when I did the demonstration of the teeth and the eyes is he doesn't hit his cymbals when he's doing that. So something happens that stops that from occurring, and it's to do with this one here. So this white component here, if I push the button down on the head, it will push that down, and that's done a number of things. So firstly, it's taken the drive away from the crank here that drives the arms. This won't spin anymore, and instead the drive will go to this crank here. So I turn him on, you'll see this crank go round, and then it will flick this and it disengage it, and it will cause the drive to go from that one back to the one on the arms. So I'll just switch him on, you can see this in action. So a number of things happen when this is pushed down. So if we have a look inside him again, I know it's difficult to see, but at the bottom here there is a drive shaft which is flopping about and is loose. So when he's operating and he's not doing his cymbals, this is flopping about, it's not engaged to anything. But when I push that button down and engage this motor here, not the motor, the plate that changes the direction of the drive, it is now engaged that one. So you can see inside and you just see just before he starts clapping again, you see that shaft suddenly disengage. So that brings me to the idea that something that really fascinated me about this is how on earth does it make noise without some kind of microphone and a hard drive or chip that's creating the sound effect of a chimp. And it's this box here. So this box is made of a kind of toughened card, so it's quite delicate in some respects. It's completely hollow, there's nothing inside, but there is a rivet on the bottom here attached to this metal strip. Now what happens is, this metal strip will engage on that cog there, and the vibration caused on that is what causes all the noise. And the little box in some respects acts as a speaker, or like the horn on a gramophone player, it projects the noise. So if I operate it now, you can see that in action. There we go. So how does it make the intermittent noise? So this odd shaped cog here with these teeth essentially are what push the box up and down. So if I just do it with my finger now, you can see inside this little metal strip here. That will get pushed when these cams are engaged, and it will cause it to go. So if I do him again, but I'm going to hold the box down, and he's going to scream continuously for the whole thing. Which is a horrible noise. This time I won't do that, and I'm going to let that do its job. So as that's going round, you'll see the box going up and down, making the kind of intermittent screaming. There we go. Now lastly, with the screaming effect, is his eyes and mouth go as well. Now inside his head will be a mechanism that pushes the eyes out and opens the mouth. But I didn't want to take this apart because this material here is very, very thin and fragile. And unlike the fur, which I took off on his body, this is actually glued down all over the place. So to take that off would actually mean destroying it. And considering this is a vintage toy, I don't want to do any damage to it, so I've left it on. But essentially, when it's going, the toothed area here that causes the intermittent screaming with the box also does a similar thing with this component up here, which pushes the drive inside the head. So the idea is quite simple. When he actually makes the noise, his mouth opens so it's in sync. So it's not just random. So I'll set him off again and you'll see this. So in many respects, it's actually a little marvel of engineering. It's surprisingly intricate, and there's all sorts of things going along here. They could have quite easily made this a lot simpler without the chattering of the teeth and the sound effect, and just had him using his cymbals, but they went the extra mile to add a very strange addition to him to make him scream. I'll just show the other components that he has. So this is the body. You've got the front and the back, and it just clamps together, and it's got these little tabs here which just go through, and then you bend the metal over when you're done. So this is what gives them that quite rigid feel when they're together, and of course this protects all the moving components on the inside. I won't put it together quite yet, just to show you that's kind of how he goes. Gives him a bit of shape. I've got the trousers or pants here. The hole in the back is for the batteries, and I think at some point there's been some kind of battery leak. At least I hope that's from a battery leak. We've got his little feet here, so they attach on the bottom of the trousers, and there'll be a little bit of glue that just holds them in place, so you don't see the wires that is what it's attached to. Then we got the hood. So this goes over his face. You've got the two holes for the ears, and then the one for the actual face. So I'll just stick that on him now. Find his ears. There we go. You've got to be quite delicate with these because they are old and the materials become fairly brittle. But you could just glue that down around so he's back to shape. And it just covers over, so it covers all the internals, so it just gives him a bit of shape and a bit of character and meat on him essentially. And then finally we've got the yellow waistcoat. So once the body is on, these all come down, the arms will glue up onto the hood part of the head there, and then the waistcoat just wraps around it all and discreetly covers the fact that underneath the fur only goes there. There's no fur around the back and the front here. It's all an illusion. So I think I'm going to put this poor guy back together. So there we have it, the musical Jolly Chimp. Can you be quiet, please? Sorry. Good. Bad monkey. Bad monkey. I'm sorry. There we go. Thank you. The musical Jolly Chimp. It's a very, very unusual toy, and possibly the stuff of nightmares, but it's good fun, and I hope you enjoyed seeing how they work. Thanks for watching.